So if you keep buying a comic book hoping to get a 9.8, should you just give up on it after a while? I say no. Hey there, I have an unboxing video for you today, and this order from Mile High Comics includes a book that I have been trying to get in a 9.8 for the longest time. I do believe that it is a book that is difficult to get in a 9.8 due to the nature of the cover and the fact that it was probably a very, very popular book, I would say probably a well-read comic, and I keep buying it. I keep gambling. It's not cheap to acquire, but it is a common book. I would say it's a book that is pretty easy to find, and it's one of these things where I have this internal debate with myself, like, at what point do I give up on the chase? So I'm trying to chase the book, and I've acquired it. And does that mean that it's over? Does that mean that I'm done playing the game? I have the book. And in some cases, it is, especially when you're talking about grails, especially holy grails. Once you acquire the book, there's a sense of satisfaction, like you've completed your mission and it feels good. You feel accomplished. But then, if it's not in the high grade that you want, do you feel like maybe things are unsettled and it's time to reopen this case and start to take a look again at trying to acquire the book? There are certain books like that for me where just getting any copy of it would feel great. I would feel satisfied. I'd feel like, okay, that was my mission, was to find this book uh, in or around a particular grade, but it was more about the acquisition of it. And it could just be the fact that the book is rare. And maybe the condition for you can be in a kind of a general sense, right? Like low, mid, high grade. It doesn't really matter. The grade is not as significant as acquiring the book. And I have many comics like that. However, I do consider myself somebody that wants to have all of their books in as high a grade as possible. So acquiring the book is kind of step one. And then I go through kind of an upgrade process where maybe I will get the next grade up and then sell the previous grade, or just buy a bunch of copies, grade them all, and then decide which out of the stack is going to be what I would consider to be the one of the highest grade, the best condition possible. So, if there is a specific book that I'm hunting in a high grade, it's hard for me to give up when I know it's possible. And in this order from Mile High Comics is one of those books. Just a quick example is X-Men Adventures #1. I've bought that book from Mile High repeatedly. I think the book is fantastic. I think there's a lot of a potential for it to increase in value. And if it doesn't, it's just a great 90s nostalgic book that runs in parallel with the X-Men cartoon, the animated series. But for some reason, I kept getting it in like the low nines, 8.5 from Mile High, miswrapped. And I was just like, I'm just going to keep buying this book. And I finally got one that I would consider it's a 9.496, could be pressed potentially into a 9.8. And so now I feel like, well, I'll probably still keep buying the book when I see it, but for the most part, if I do see it available, I pass on it. I'm more likely to pass on it because I feel like while acquiring the book was sort of phase one, I want that book in a 9.8. I want that book to slab in a 9.8 and hang on my wall and display it as part of like an X-Men themed display, right? So let's get to the unboxing and look at the books. This is a pretty big order from Mile High, and there's a lot of great books in here. Around the Copper Age, slightly dipping into, the modern and so forth. But Lots of great books, typical books that I collected are in my wheelhouse. So let's open up this order and take a look and see if I finally got that book in a 9.8. All right, here we go. This is what I would say is the big boy box from Mile High Comics. It doesn't mean there's a ton of books in here, but this thing is a pretty good size. It just means that they sort of quadruple wrap the order once it gets above a certain amount. So let's unbox this and get to the comics. All right, I am excited. Here we go. This is just for me, this is just got a very typical of an order that I would place. Books that I would look for at a show or an LCS. So let's get to it here and see what is in this order. Okay, and of course the one right on the top I'll save for last. X-Men 184, the first appearance of Forge. Probably my fifth or sixth copy. I keep buying it. It's another one of those where I'm sort of chasing in the high grade. This looks to have a little bit of a spine push, a little bit of a crease in here with some smaller spine ticks up and down the side here. So I have a couple of these that I need to press, so I'll probably just add that to that pile. But still, I think it's a great book to spec on. Amazing Spider-Man 202. This one is it's got the Punisher on it. It's older 1979 Bronze Age Spider-Man. So I'm always on the lookout for these. Always looking for these sorts of books in as high grade as possible. This one looks really, really nicely wrapped. Just slightly miswrapped, but actually that the black border going all the way down makes it look quite nice. So this looks really good. Again, typical near mint, in that 992 range, maybe a 94. But still, getting these books in 9.2, I just feel like getting them into my collection and preserving them with a better backing board and bag and cataloging them as high grade, you just can't beat it. It's a great investment for me. Iron Man 170. Love this book. First James Rhodes as Iron Man. Here he is right on the cover putting the Iron Man armor on. Kind of a Ultimate Fallout-ish sort of cover where it's that character, but it's not the full appearance of the particular character as the new iteration. So while it's not the first Spider-Man, it's the first Miles Morales. This is not the first Iron Man, but it's the first James Rhodey as Iron Man. So I love grabbing this book where I can get it. It's pretty reasonable at Mile High, especially getting it in high grade. Avengers 225 is another book I actively seek out. This is wildly miswrapped poorly here, but love it nonetheless. Any of these sort of Black Knight covers where he's prominently featured, I think they're just going to become more and more important as Black Knight starts showing up in the MCU. Once the actor shows up in the full Black Knight armor, I think people are going to kind of go nuts for that. I mean, it's a pretty cool look, and we'll have to see. I feel like this one's going to be close to comic book accurate. Maybe we'll pass on the boots, but for the most part, I think the helm, the sword, maybe the silver armor, I think it's going to look great. So I'm just kind of adding these sort of to my back stock of Black Knight and Avengers books. Same goes for Marvel Team Up. A lot of great just Bronze Age, early Copper Marvel that maybe was not highly sought after, easier to find in the secondary market. And if you're able to get these books that are now 44 years old in high grade, I mean, it's tremendous. So Spider-Man and Thor in this team-up book, Where Walks the Living Monolith, from 1978. So great 35-cent cover there. Marvel Team Up, again, it's on my radar at Mile High. This is Marvel Team Up 56, featuring Daredevil and Electro. Looks really great. A little bit of a color break here, but I mean, just the spine looks tremendous. It just everything about it. Short corners are sharp. Love it. And again, there's always an opportunity with these to do a little bit of a clean and press where possible to get just even a minor grade bump. And it's worth it for me to spend the money to get the high grade. Iron Man 81 was one that just appeared on their new in stock, and so I jumped on it. Was not cheap, but I do try and grab those pre 100 Ironmans where I can find them. And this one is also miswrapped, but again, just gorgeous in that high grade, in that 9.4-ish range. All right, they always throw one in here with with no backing board. This is Amazing Spider-Man 367, right in the heart of the Mark Bagley art era of Amazing Spider-Man. And this one I think was, yeah, really affordable. It was like $6 or $7. And a lot of times you can find these. Now, this is not the case. I do see a few color breaks here in the spine. But a lot of times these books, once you start getting into the mid 90s and all the way to current, a lot of times those near mint at Mile High end up being 9/8. So it's really more around the silver, bronze, and copper that may end up being closer to 9. But sometimes if you end up getting the moderns listed as near mint, you'll get them 9/6, 9/8, which is nice. Uncanny X-Men 163. This one, I'm taking a look. Also miswrapped. So again, that's part of the problem. I am a big, believer in a presentable book having a near perfect wrapping on the cover if possible. And so when they're slightly miswrapped, the wrapping doesn't affect the grade, but for me it affects the presentation. So if I've got two books that are 9/6 and one is miswrapped and one is very accurately wrapped, I try to get rid of the miswrapped one, even if it's in a high grade, just because it's not something that I'm going to slab and want to present. Obviously, if it's a Grail or Key, it's a different story. But on your average book, which this is not a Grail, however, the miswrapping sometimes will maybe hide some scuffing, and just at first glance, even in the bag and board, the border looks really, really clean and nice. So this one could end up being a 9/8 candidate. All right, X-Men 153. I have many copies of this. In fact, I just sent one off to CGC. I'd like to get this slabbed in a 9/8. This is another one of those kind of sneaky books that it's recognizable, it's common, but in a high grade, in a 9.8, the book really jumps in value. Now, this one I just noticed has some weird color rubbing issue right there on the M, right on the trade dress rather. So that's unfortunate. There's not much you can do about that, and that will take the grade down. So if it is a 9/8, now we're probably talking 9/4, 9/2 on that one, just from the. And again, that's a presentation thing too, and I'm shifting the bag around. I don't think it's on there, but it's almost like someone took an eraser right to the M and swiped it. So that's unfortunate. And then second to last book, this is the West Coast Avengers number 56. The Witch is Back. This is what people are saying is the first appearance of the Dark Scarlet Witch, the Dark Witch. So this is potentially the persona that the Scarlet Witch is going to take on in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So kind of, and persona first appearance, they don't really hold up, but I wanted to get a copy nonetheless to just kind of match up with my speculation on what's going to happen in that movie. From the looks of it, I don't see many color breaks. This looks to have, I would say, just the typical, like, you just see these little tiny ticks that aren't color breaking, and there's just like all up and down the book. So without a press, it's probably 9294, but those are always fun to try and get out with a tack iron. All right, so for the final book, this is a book that covers all of the bases that I've been talking about, even in this order, right? Miswrapped. I have several of these that are miswrapped, or not several, two I would say that are miswrapped. They all have just those minor ticks, non-color breaking, but just minor that just adds to the presentation issue. So here we go. Let's see if at least it's presentable and if it is a 9.8 candidate. Amazing Spider-Man 301. So at first glance, I would say this definitely passes the presentation for me. You have just the ever so slight, and not miswrapping, just wrapping in general. And from the back of the book, with the ad being dark, it looks like it has that black border going all the way up and down. And for this one, let's take it out of the bag and board and give it a little bit of a closer examination. So, again, this book is not cheap, but I keep risking it with Mile High in hopes that I can find something that could be worthy of slabbing. So, at first glance, and sometimes this book is quite faded too. So, from a color perspective, I think this is the color that you're looking for. You want the trade in that vibrant blue, almost like an aqua blue. So, you want that to pop and stand out. You want a lot of times the green gets a little faded. So, from a color perspective, this looks great. Great McFarlane art, as we all know. Fantastic. Great pair with ASM 300. It has all of those things going for it. I don't see really any creasing as I move it back and forth in the light. So if you are grading books yourself, make sure you have good overhead lighting. Yes, sometimes the glare is annoying, but it's really the only way to go because you want to be able to see the complete surface of the book. So like as you shine it there, you can just see there is something kind of going up and down the book, but it's really just part of the paper. If I was going to press it anyway, it's going to come out. So I don't worry about that too much. Now, from the spine, bottom looks good. Just a little slight dirt or color rub right there, but really that's not going to detract it. But we're starting to move just slightly away from a 9.8. Right there is something, but it's very, very minor. It could be a little bit of dirt. It could be a spine tick or some little slight crease, but it's minor. Here is where we start to get into those little itty bitty ticks right in there as I move the light. 1, 2, 3, right after another. They're all just slight ticks, and that's where the tack iron's going to come in handy. Boy, this is close. So what I did notice when I took it out of the bag and board is right here on the back cover is this TSR ad that is super, super dark. Let me see something here. Yeah, so I don't know what this is. It's some sort of shredding, or I don't know what this is on the back cover here. Color rubbing or a scratch of some kind. So that's a bummer. I was just about to say this could be my 9.8 candidate, but it is not. So now I'm kind of bummed. But let's figure out what grade it is. And this is what was going to get me, was this corner right up there. You know, like, what is that? So, and a lot of times I try and just fix these with my finger and just sort of do that and push the cover back into place. And then it doesn't look as bad, but you can still see the color break. But there are times where if it's a perfect book and that's all you have, you'll still get the 9.8. But really, we're talking about a 9.6 now. That breaks color, that spine tick on the back right there. So that now we're in the 9.4-ish territory. And then whatever this is, this scratch or color rub or something, and I'm leaning towards it being a scratch, another color breaking spine tick here. So this is where it adds up. So on the front, it's borderline 9.8 on the front, right? But a cover is a cover, and the back cover certainly counts as a cover. And on the back here, this looks semi-disastrous. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. This just looks bad. It's something, and especially as I move the light back and forth, You can just see it right there, pick up on the cover. It's almost like somebody just took like a blunt knife or something and just like if you were opening a package and just kind of scratched the back like that. So, what grade should this book get, right? So, I have a 9.0 slab that I always refer to that has a scratch, and it's a very thin scratch, and it goes vertically up and down the entire book, but it is perfect otherwise, and it got a 9. So, in this case, the book's not perfect. I would say it's without that scratch, it's probably a 9.4. You could argue a 9.6, but I think it's a 9.4. And then I would say for each of these, it's probably knocking the book down a grade. So I'm considering giving it a 9. And I would go 8.5, but the front looks so nice, right? So I really don't think it's less than a 9. So I'm going to go 9.0 on this one. And again, it's a bummer because I keep buying this book and I keep buying it from Mile High. And these are, it's almost like certain books they know that they can't really put a 9.8 candidate even with a press out there. And then other books they just don't care. But there must be a checklist of keys or other books with value that I think they put in a different category. I just can't seem to get that book. And again, close to 9.8, like with a press and clean could be. I don't even have. Well, I think I have one copy that could be, but it's borderline. So anyway, there it is. It is what it is. I'm glad we graded it. Let's look at the order details and see just how the order worked itself out. We can plug in that 9.0 and you can kind of see the value from a CGC perspective and see, should I have just bought a 9.0 slab at this point? Let's look at those details. Okay, so here we go with the order breakdown. This order was placed March 7th, 2022 from Mile High Comics, and it was a total cost of $385.80. Here is the breakdown of the total cost. I had to pay $11 insurance and distributed the $11 across the 12 books in the order to come up with a match of $385. Okay, so I don't mind sharing what I paid for the books because, again, I think information and sharing information is useful. However, it is embarrassing to me because I like to think that I'm spending my money wisely and intelligently here, and I didn't on this one. Looking after the fact, from a fair market value, just raw book, it was a $214 loss. Now, what does that mean to be a loss? It just means it's possible that I could have found these books elsewhere for much cheaper. Now, where is elsewhere? Is that eBay? Okay, but are you getting ASM 301 and a 9.0 on eBay? Maybe. Are you getting it in a 7 or an 8? Probably. Same goes for all the books, honestly. I mean, it's certainly possible with enough online digging that you could find these books at a better deal than what I paid for Mile High. So it is what it is. Again, I don't want to call this order a failure quite yet, but when I looked at the fair market value as compared to what I paid, it was quite embarrassing. Okay, so moving on from that embarrassment, let's just plug in the grade so you can at least see where my head was at. And if we go from the what everybody considers to be near mid, the 9.4, in a CGC, once those values pop in, we can see that it looked to be a gain of $135. And a lot of this was driven by me trying to get 301 even in a 9.4. So the logic was, hey, I'll go ahead and spend almost $120 on that book. And if it's in the ballpark of 9.4 and I'm able to maybe fix it up and get it in as 9.4, then it has a CGC value of $185. And I can kind of pick which one's most presentable and all of that good stuff. And so I figure that's worth my time. It's worth my time to get that book and maybe save some money because I could stand to add about $33.46 to my collection if I were to able to get that book in a 9.4. Some of the other books, not so much. I think the one that's really sticking out for me is Iron Man 81 has an extremely low fair market value, and it cost me $38.52. A fair market value loss of over $35, not worthy of being slabbed, and so on. X-Men 184 values not holding up like I thought. It still has a profitable CGC value, but fair market value, it has dropped significantly. I still believe in the book, but it's just not currently worth really all that much. Avengers 225 was a nice surprise. It cost me $23.72, and I think people like the older Black Knight books slabbed. And even in a 9.4, it's $115. So it had the potential, or I guess it has, I haven't graded that one yet, of gaining almost $60 in a CGC. So again, you can look at the numbers yourself and look at these values and kind of eyeball some of the different books that I picked up and why I was thinking. But this is kind of, at least this is where I use my logic to justify the money I'm spending. Now, I understand that the 301 is not a 9.8, but just for fun, let's flip all these to 9.8 and we can kind of see what was the ceiling for this order. $5,467.50. Again, realistically, no, not happening. But check out ASM 202. Maybe that one with a nice little clean, maybe a little bit of a press, some tack iron work. Maybe that one jumps to a 9.8, right? And then we're looking at $1,300 for that book in a 9.8, driven by the Punisher on the cover. So those are the other things that I look at. I try and hedge my bets a little bit, maybe just figure out if I'm, instead of just buying ASM 301 and getting heartbroken when it's like comes back a 9.0 with a giant scratch on the back, at least I have some other books that could potentially make up for the order. Again, what's weird is Avengers 225 in a 9.8 is less than 9.4, and I don't know if it's just low quantity, but sometimes that happens with values. They're just a little off. Again, why did I buy Iron Man 81? $621 value in a 9.8. So it was worth it there. And that's how some of these older books go, right? Just those, the lower end of the high grade, really not all that interesting. But then you get into the 9.6 and 9.8 and you're like, wow, look at the fair market value of about $3 for that book. But then a 9.8 being 621. And that book is really, it's not a key, it's not significant. And those are the books that I look at. I look at, what books are sliding from an FMV raw perspective, but still hold that respectable value because of the age of the book. And you can see when we turn these to 9.8, what I'm talking about. Marvel Team Up 56, a $500 book in a 9.8, but a fair market value raw of $4.51. And basically what that's telling you is that the majority of these books that are online on eBay, flea markets, LCSs, whatever, they're all beat up. They're all, fine minus, very fine minus. They're all around there. And a lot of times these are the books you're getting from Atomic Avenue in that 5, 6, 7.0 type range. But anyway, this is the logic. Now, again, if let's just say for fun, we flip them all back to 9.4, and let's look at that ASM in a 9.0. So ASM 301 in a 9.0 has a CGC value of $138, a $13.54 loss. So not smart. I could probably go onto eBay and get that book for roughly $100 with shipping, maybe. So that's the question, right? Is, at what point do you just give up on a book? Have I spent way too much money? Could I have just bought a 9.6 by now, and just would a 9.6 be satisfying enough? I don't really know. It kind of depends on the book. But at some point it becomes more than the book. It becomes the chase. It becomes pride. It becomes trying to prove it to yourself, because really that's your collection is yours, but it's almost like you're telling yourself, I know that I can do this. I know I can find this book in the grade that I want, and I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep pursuing it, and I'm going to hunt this book down, track it down until I get it, and then I'll move on to the next book. But I do wonder, is it me really wanting ASM 301 in a 9.8, or am I chasing the chase? Am I so disappointed with my process and my results so far that I just want to prove to myself that I can do this, and that I'm buying intelligently from the right places? This specific one has really been a tough one because, like I said, I do feel like Mile High is on to certain books. And I could be wrong. It could just be complete luck. But it is definitely like walking up to the slot machine and telling yourself, this is the turn. This is the one. I'm going to keep feeding this machine any day now. This is going to be the one. And when I turned that book over and looked at it, I was like, this is it. I finally hit it, because it was very well wrapped. I really thought from the front of the book, it presented well. But it's just not the case. So I'll just have to enjoy it. I mean, for what it's worth, it's white pages on the inside. I'm just trying to justify it here at this point. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I appreciate you watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.